Hello, and thank you for listening to Texas History for Kids. I'm your host, Michelle Gallegos, an educator, writer, history nerd, and novice investigator. Each week on the show, we will learn about interesting parts of Texas history, from battles and historical figures to the odd and enchanted. Hi, and welcome back to Texas History for Kids. This is the first episode of my podcast series, and I'm super excited to tell kids about our history in a fun, factual way without it getting boring. Each episode should only run about 15 minutes or less. I'm your host, Michelle Gallegos. So let's get this episode started. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I was born in San Antonio, Texas. I was the first in my family to graduate with a college degree. I have my Bachelor of Arts in Communication from the University of Texas at San Antonio. Go Roadrunners! I earned my teaching certification in 2019, and I have taught first and second grades. I enjoy bringing content that will pique a child's interest, and hey, if you're an adult listening, I hope to teach you a little something as well. I do my own research here, so my resources are vast, but I will always cite my sources in the show notes. I have a passion for writing. Currently, I have 3 manuscripts that are just screaming out for publication, or maybe it's just me screaming. Either way, they're out there in the publishing world, and I really hope that somebody is able to pick them up soon. Okay, enough about me. Let's go ahead and get started with today's episode. Today, I am going to take you through a journey of ancient Texas. Land can be very different depending on where in the state you are. So let's go ahead and begin with the first part, which is ancient sea bottoms. What are some of the things that you think about when you hear of Texas? Is it a cowboy hat, boots, or spurs? What about cows and horses and open land? Do you think about its shape? Let's face it, it's probably the most recognized state of all because of its fantastic shape. There's a little more to Texas than all of those wonderful things, though. I might have you asking yourself a few questions today. Are you sure this is in Texas? Yes. From ancient seas to the Ice Age, let's go ahead and begin. Ancient seas. Huh? Isn't that legend? First, did you know that some parts of Texas are actually considered the floor of an ancient sea bottom? Yeah. 1,000,000 years ago, 30 million to be exact, the Gulf of Mexico actually covered most of the southern and southeastern parts of Texas. So pretty much all of those coastal cities like Corpus Christi, Brownsville, and Galveston were underwater at one point. More than likely, even more parts of Texas like Houston and the Rio Grande were as well. Geologists, who are actually people who study the earth, believe that Llano County is home to some of the oldest land on earth because the ancient sea that pushed that part of the land upward saved it from being underwater. While the rest of Texas was still underwater, the land around Burnett and Llano County were not, and this area is called the Llano Uplift. If you want to take a look for yourself, you can actually see it. If you take a drive to Enchanted Rock State Park near Fredericksburg, you can walk up 11 miles of a domed pink rock that is millions of years old. The rock is pink because it is a granite rock, so the type of rock matters in the color and, of course, shape of a rock. Granite is a type of rock that was once formed by magma. Yeah, the stuff that comes out of volcanoes. I could do a whole episode just on that part of Texas. There are many legends surrounding Enchanted Rock that are very interesting to listen to, but today we are talking about the land itself. At the bottom of the rock, you'll find shrubs and cactus, and as you move up this mountain rock of Enchanted Rock, you'll find holes or pits in the rock that hold small amounts of rainwater and tiny invertebrates called fairy shrimp. Invertebrates are animals without a backbone. If you get a chance to visit this wonderful place, I highly recommend seeing it for yourself. So when you get to the very top of the rock, that is considered the oldest part of Texas land because it was not changed from the push and the force of water that caused the sea to move upward. So that is some of the oldest parts of Texas. Go ahead and be sure to ask your parents to take you there. Enchanted Rock State Park near Fredericksburg, Texas. The second thing we're going to talk about is dinosaurs. Yes. Raise your hand if you live or know where Glen Rose, Texas is. It's a small town near Fort Worth, Texas. Guess what? You can walk on some of the same land that dinosaurs roamed over 113 million years ago. Today, you can visit the Dinosaur State Valley Park near Glen Rose, Texas, to get a glimpse of real-life fossils left by those prehistoric giants. All you need to do is take a short walk along the Paluxy River. Recently, the river bottom dried up, which revealed hidden dinosaur tracks left in the mud over millions of years ago. This makes the bed of the Paluxy River ancient as well. If you go to the Dinosaur Valley State Park, the visit only costs about $8, but it is well worth it. This area is home to both herbivore or plant-eating dinosaurs and carnivores, which are meat eaters. Herbivores likely came to eat the large palm trees that inhabited the area, and carnivores just probably followed their prey, which were the herbivores going to eat these plants. Today, we're going to talk about 2 dinosaur tracks that were found in Dinosaur Valley. Okay, I might chop up these dinosaur names. Bear with me, people. The first one is called the Acrocanthosaurus. It is believed to have been about 20 feet tall. It was a carnivore, so it ate meat, and it resembled a reptile with 2 legs. So they believe this guy is the cousin to the T-Rex. They believe that he weighed 3 to 5 tons. That's about the same size as a bulldozer. The footprints left behind by this dinosaur look like 3 pointed toes, so he is very similar to the T-Rex. The other one we're going to talk about is the Sauroposeidon protellus, which has been the state official dinosaur of Texas since 2009. It has a long neck and may have measured up to 100 feet long and weighed about 44 tons, which is about the same size as 9 or 10 bulldozers. It walked on 4 feet, leaving behind larger horseshoe-shaped tracks that are similar to elephant footprints. Each footprint is about the size of a yardstick, guys. Those large rulers that your teacher might have in your classroom? Here's a fun fact about me. I used to use the yardstick in my class to turn on my projector because I was just too short to reach. My students would always laugh at me because I had to use that yardstick. But anywho, I digress. As I said, each footprint was the size of a yardstick. So could you imagine seeing a footprint as large as that big giant ruler that's in your teacher's classroom? Wow. All right, so we're going to go ahead and look at the last thing that caused the landscape in Texas to change. We are going to talk about the Ice Age. Roughly 12,000 years ago, Earth entered into its last ice age. Have you seen that movie? It's so cute. I love it. Okay, anyway, so here I'm going to go ahead and move on. Scientists believe that there have been several ice ages throughout Earth's history. An ice age is when the Earth's temperature cools for a very long time and ice forms over most of its surface. It's hard to believe that Texas was once entrapped in an ice age, but it actually was. The end of the ice age caused these glaciers to melt, which formed many lakes and rivers that we still have here in Texas today. With that became many strange animals that began making their home in Texas because of the water sources that were now here. Having water on land allows plants and vegetation to grow. Plants and vegetation then bring other animals that are out looking for food. Some of the animal fossils they found were in Bryan, Texas, and the Brazos Valley region, and even into Waco. Today, we will talk about 3 of those animal fossils. One of them is called the Columbian mammoth. Now, Columbian mammoths grew much bigger than its cousin, the woolly mammoth. The Columbian mammoth is believed to have been over 14 feet tall. That's about the size of a giraffe. So if you've ever been to the zoo and you see that giraffe, yeah, he was about the size of that. He was also 20,000 pounds. The Columbian mammoth is likely to have had little to no hair due to the warmer climates of Texas. Of course, as those glaciers and the ice age were melting, the animals had to sort of acclimate to the warmer climates, and so they lost their hair. They also had 16-foot long curvy tusks. Tusks are teeth that stick out of the mouth. So let's talk about math skills here, guys. If he was 14 feet tall and his tusks were 16 feet long, that means his tusks were actually 2 feet longer than he was tall. So that's a pretty large tooth, if you ask me. His tusks were not used for eating, though. They were most likely used as a defense mechanism. Columbian mammoths lived around central Texas approximately 65,000 years ago, and they went extinct 10,000 years ago because they were just too large of an animal to handle the Texas climate warming up. The next animal we will be talking about is the western camel. Yeah, you heard that right. Camels in Texas. They lived in Waco, Texas, and reached about 7 feet tall. Of course, the camel is a herbivore or plant eater. The last animal we're going to talk about is this saber-toothed cat, not to be confused with the saber-toothed tiger. It was a meat eater or carnivore that was about the size of a lion today. Its prey included the western camel. The first fossil was discovered in a Texas cave by an American paleontologist named Joseph Leidy in 1869. They are called the saber-toothed cat because it is not believed to have been related to the tiger. They also went extinct because humans hunted them. At Lake Lubbock Landmark, paleontologists uncovered 16 Columbian mammoths, a western camel, a dwarf antelope, alligators, a giant tortoise, and the tooth of a giant saber-toothed cat. Humans, then called Paleo-Indians, did live in Texas after the Ice Age, and scientists have found fossils of the tools used to kill these large animals. Most of the tools used were made of stones that were sharpened to a point, similar to a knife today. Today we know that in the 1800s, buffalo and bison were hunted largely by settlers moving west into Texas for the use of food and shelter, and they used almost every part of the bison. Those animals were so huge, and it is no doubt that our ancestors probably hunted the Columbian mammoth for the same reason. Well, today we talked about Texas' ancient seas, dinosaur tracks, and the Ice Age. Was it what you expected? I'd love to hear from you. What surprised you the most from what you learned about today? If you or your child has received valuable information, please share the show with your friends who might find it interesting. Remember, yesterday is today's history.